Single parenting can feel like a solo journey, but it doesn't have to be. Introducing MomFlex app, the ultimate village web app designed just for you. From financial support to community connections, MomFlex app offers a lifeline, helping you navigate parenting with confidence. Find trusted resources, build your support network, and thrive. Because every parent deserves a village. Join the movement today. Visit momflex.org to install the app and take the first step toward a stronger, more supported you.
Every day's a battle, every step a climb, but we're standing tall, we're building our lives. Through the sleepless nights and the endless fight, we rise, we shine, we hold on tight. We are more than the labels, more than the pain, breaking the cycle, rewriting the game. Stronger together, we lift, we strive. Single parents, we rise and thrive.
Hey, single parents, are you ready to take charge of your future and family's peace of mind? Welcome back to Beyond the Struggle, Rise and Thrive, the podcast where we uplift, inform, and empower single parents through every stage of this journey. I'm your host, LaFortune, and today we are diving into a topic that often gets pushed to the bottom of the to-do list, but one that's so important for your family's future and your own peace of mind. We are talking about estate planning and end-of-life preparation. I know. It might sound overwhelming at first, but hear me out. This is all about putting the right pieces in place so your family will be taken care of, no matter what happens. Let me tell you, it is not as complicated as it may seem. In fact, by the end of this episode, you will feel more confident and empowered to take control of this essential task. Now, before you start stressing out about legal jargon and the fear of not knowing where to begin, we're going to break it down together. This isn't about scaring you or adding another thing to your plate. It's about simplifying the process so that you can make sure your loved ones are provided for no matter what life throws your way. And today, I am thrilled to have a guest who is an absolute expert in this field. Meet Adam Zuckerman, the founder of Burr in Work. Adam has made it his mission to take the stress and mystery out of estate planning and end-of-life preparation. His company offers resources and services to help individuals and families navigate this often difficult conversation with clarity and ease. Adam's background is impressive. He is an Eisenhower Fellow, a practicing attorney, and holds an MBA. He brings a unique combination of legal knowledge, business savvy, and entrepreneurial spirit to his work. But perhaps most importantly, Adam helps families approach estate planning with sense of clarity, compassion, and yes, believe it or not, humor. We are so lucky to have him here with us today to break down the process, demystify the paperwork, and give you the tools you need to plan with confidence. Adam, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. That may have been the nicest introduction on a podcast that I have ever received. I need to have you come with me for all of my meetings.
Well, thank you. I am so glad to have you here. And let's start at the beginning, shall we? A lot of our listeners hear estate planning and think that's for rich people. Can you break it down? What is...
Yeah, so it's interesting. We work with a lot of families across the country, individuals that, quite frankly, are a little bit overwhelmed when it comes to estate planning. They either don't know where to start, or something happened, like a relative or a loved one passed away, and they're jumping into the situation, trying to find answers. And quite frankly, one of the most challenging times possible is when you need the will. That's not when you should be educating yourself what a will is.
Correct.
And a lot of people, they don't like talking about things that are related to death. But the reality is that we need to have these conversations. We need to have these conversations early because the earlier we have those conversations, the easier those conversations become.
Correct.
Now, for many people, they think that estate planning is simply having a will, maybe having a trust, figuring out who gets your stuff if you pass away. But there's a lot more to it. And fortunately, that additional information that you need to collect, while there might be a lot of it, it doesn't need to be difficult to find. And that's what Buried in Work is doing in large part. We're simplifying estate planning and end-of-life tasks and giving people, families, their loved ones, a framework where they can learn the most important aspects, those foundational components of what an estate plan is. And then they can develop and have their estate plan grow in complexity as they need it, as their life goes on.
So estate planning isn't just for people with mansions and yachts?
Everybody. So this is the funny thing. When we talk to people, oftentimes they say, oh, I don't need an estate plan. I don't have much. Or, oh, I can get to it later. I can pass away when I'm 50 or 60 or 70 if they're younger.
Correct.
But the reality is that even if you don't have a will, if you don't have a trust, if you haven't written down what you want to have happen to you at the end of your life, you still have an estate plan. The government has something called intestate succession laws in every state in the country. So if you pass away and you have no will, your estate plan is just dictated for you by where you live.
So basically it goes to the government.
Yeah, exactly. So your spouse would get something, then your kids, then your parents, then your relatives, and if nobody, then it goes to the state. So what our position is, instead of letting the state determine what happens to anything that you might have, the shirt on your back to the bank accounts or stock or yachts or mansions or cars, if you're lucky enough to have those, you should understand the basics, learn how it's going to impact you, which is an easy process, and then you can start putting each individual component of a comprehensive estate plan in place so your family isn't left scrambling and something were to happen to you.
That's powerful. So for single parents especially then, who may not have a partner to lean on, this is a critical step for them to take, correct?
It's unbelievably important and critical. So a will is the most foundational component of your estate plan. It dictates what happens to your things, but more importantly for single moms, or single parents, single fathers, it also allows you to designate a guardian for your child in the event that something were to happen to you. And the thing that's really interesting there is that a lot of people think, oh, well, I can go out and make a designation for a guardian. That doesn't necessarily mean that that guardian is going to accept.
Correct.
There's a lot of considerations that you have to take into place as you're going through this process of, I'm going to create a will. My child or children are this age. This is what their needs are. Are they special needs? Am I creating special mechanisms like trust to work with your will to help them on their way if something were to happen to me? And then it gets even more complicated and fun. What if something were to happen to you, but you don't actually pass away? Right? So that's not where a will would come in. You need something else in that place. And the reason why is a will is only activated when you actually pass away. So there's a lot of unique challenges for single parents, but it's important that you understand what those different levers and what those different options are for you to utilize.
So let's say someone is listening and thinking, okay, this sounds important, but I'm overwhelmed. Where do I even start?
Okay. So the easiest thing is come to our website. It's buriedinwork.com. We have frameworks. One is called the Estate Planning Pyramid, which goes through many of the core foundational components that you need in an estate plan. So it'll explain to you what advance directives are. So in the event something were to happen to you, who gets to legally act on your behalf and carry out your wishes. So your family members, your loved ones aren't left guessing. It explains what a will is. It explains what a key contact log is. So if something were to happen to you, who needs to be contacted? We have another framework, very easy to understand. It's called the end-of-life pathway. It helps you legally provide those wishes to people. So again, advance directives. Then it helps you figure out what a final resting place might look like. It's no longer just being buried or cremated. There's so many different options out there, literally 15, 20 different things that we can talk about. And then there's your service. Do you want to have a home funeral? Do you want to be memorialized a certain way? if you have traditions, end of life, Christianity, Jewish, Hindu, Muslim, and non-secular, LGBTQ+, there's so many different options. So if you come to the website, you can follow the frameworks. But if you really want to dive into, we have over 150 topic-specific information hubs that if you say, I'm interested in this specific trust, it will give you information. So key things to know, what you should know about it, articles that we have written and have been written by our partners about that topic. And then if you still need help, there's guides, and then we can connect you with service providers that can help as well. But the trick is, it seems overwhelming. It shouldn't be. You can start small. Just have your will in place. Write a legacy letter to your children saying, I love you. This is what you need to know. This is what I hope happens in your life.
Correct.
And then you slowly have your estate plan grow with you over time, and you get the documents in place and the documents that you need to make things a little bit easier on you and your loved ones.
And I'm guessing you don't have to figure out everything in one day, correct? Or do you?
No. The key is to start. And there's the saying that every journey of 10,000 miles starts with a single step.
Mm-hmm.
You need to start. The first thing that you do is you organize your information. You figure out, these are my children. This is who I want to be a guardian, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
You start asking yourself questions. Who will raise your child if you die or become incapacitated? You include a backup guardian in case the first guardian can't serve for some reason.
Correct.
You create that will, and you make sure that the will is documented and abides by the legal requirements in the state that you live. And we have a list of all of the different requirements for every single state in one of our information hubs, will requirements by states. And what I mean by that is some states may say you need 2 signatures. Some states may say that you need your witness, but they can't be a beneficiary or related to you. Another states might say that you have to have it notarized. So you just want to make sure that your will is actually legal, right? That's your minimum. Your will specifies who inherits what, and who is in charge of carrying out those wishes. That's called the executor. Now, without the will, again, the state's going to decide based on those laws, and that might not be your preferences. Then, as things get more complicated, you can start looking at other things like a trust, because minors can't legally inherit property.
Correct.
So oftentimes what you do is you set up that trust and you're leaving the assets to the trust in the benefit of that child. And the court doesn't then have to appoint someone to manage assets that are left over. Instead, you get to choose who gets to manage those assets. So effectively, a trust lets you control how and when your kids get access to what you leave, as opposed to letting the court decide on who gets to decide. You get to manage that trustee name then. You get to think about designating your beneficiaries carefully. So if you look at your bank accounts that you have, or your insurance portfolio, if you have, or insurance policies rather, or your investment portfolio, if you have investments, you can designate who gets that money to make sure that the right person actually gets it. And then it goes on and on from there. But start simple.
Right.
Who gets what? Who needs to look after your kids? And create a will that reflects those wishes. And from there, you can start using the website. You can start looking at all of the other things. But the key is you just need to start.
Now, let's talk about affordability. Are these services expensive?
Yeah, they don't need to be. So I think that every single person needs a will the moment they turn 18. When you become an adult, you should have one. Most people, when they're 18, don't have a lot of resources.
Mm-hmm.
They can do it yourself if you want. And then as your life progresses, as your estate gets more complicated, then you may want to bring in a professional. Typically speaking, if you're going to get a very inexpensive will done online, $500, $300, $1,000, there's a variety of different services that you can use.
Okay.
But you can do it yourself literally for free. You have to get the right witnesses. You have to make sure that it's legal. And that's one of the reasons that you oftentimes want to use a legal professional.
Correct.
To make sure that your will is actually legally valid.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't make any mistakes. If it's a simple will, we have templates, we have explanations of how to make a very simple will that you can rely on. Again, we're not providing legal services, you're educating yourself.
I love that.
As you progress, estate planning can become more expensive. But typically what happens is it becomes more expensive because you're protecting more assets, more wealth.
Yeah.
It's okay to spend them.
Let's shift to one. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
We have some products that help you organize your information also. So imagine that you have your will,
Mm-hmm.
but if your family members, the loved ones that you have in your life can't find the will when they need it, it's as if it doesn't exist at all.
Oh.
So, right. And that's very important. You don't want to send them on a scavenger hunt.
So how do you do that? Who do you confide the will to?
Yeah, exactly. What people have to do is identify then and make sure that the people in their life know where their documents are. And we have a product called the Clear Kit for example, the executor summary report, which helps your family organize your information. It doesn't make your will, but it says, I have a will. This is where it is. This is where you should go and find it.
I see.
Besides that point.
You know, in movies, you see people, when people passed away, they will have a lawyer come over to the house and start executing the will. So do we also have to find a lawyer and give them the will to come over if we expire, and he can come over and sit down with our loved ones and explain the will?
I love this analogy. It comes up in so many conversations. It's the family gathering in a darkly or dimly lit room in the leather couches.
Correct.
And a lawyer walks in and leans against a desk and opens up a leather portfolio and says, this is the reading of the will. That does not happen very often. It's very rare. What does happen, though, is that if you work with an attorney to draft your will, to draft a trust, to help with you with your estate plan, they oftentimes maintain a copy of the will, possibly even the original. So in the event that there's any issues, the court can then go back to them and say, is this the original? Is this what the intent was? And they say, yes, it was.
Okay.
They may call up and say, here's the will. But unless you have a significant amount of assets, typically what would happen if you have a letter in your desk that says, contact this attorney who helped me write my will, and someone contacts them, they're going to say, do I have the ability to give you this will legally? Why should I be giving it to you? And they'll make sure that you're entitled to it. And then once they do that check, they'll literally just mail you the will, tell you where to come and pick it up. And if you're lucky, they'll walk you through what it says and possibly charge you by the hour to do.
Well, that's great. So let's shift to an end of life planning, like medical decisions and final arrangement. How do those fit into the will?
Those are components that are part of the estate planning period core, pyramid core, so advanced directives. And that's also what the end of life pathway is designed to help you do. So advanced directives are legal documents. In some states, it's a very prescriptive form. Like if you are in this specific state, you have to use this form. Other states are general. You have to make sure that you have the right information. Here are the guidelines. And what the advanced directives do is they empower someone to act on your behalf in the event you can't advocate for yourself. Because again, a will does not kick in until you actually pass away. So this is a document that bridges that gap. You can't speak for yourself, but you're not yet dead. It also informs individuals of what you want to have happen to you. So they can be comprised of multiple documents. It creates a healthcare agent or attorney in fact, effectively. So this is a healthcare proxy. So a power of attorney medical. There's many different ways to describe it. You can go to the website and look for the proper pathways, and it explains what they are. But those documents mean that someone else can act on your behalf.
Okay.
Then what you need to do is put something in place that we call your final resting place instruction sheet. And it just outlines all of your preferences. If I want to have a funeral, who do I want to have speak? If I want pallbearers, who are those individuals? Do I want a sermon? Do I not? Do I want this to happen? Do I want that to happen? Do I have a plot? Do I want to cast it? Do I want to be cremated? A lot of different questions that if you haven't gone through this before, they're probably unfamiliar. So we have a form that you can download. It's in our template section. It's relatively inexpensive. I think it's $25 right now for a bundle of documents, including that. And then you can download it and check it off and say, this is what I have. And you don't have to fill everything out. You don't have to make your decisions. You fill out the information that you have when you have it. And best of all, if you change your mind, you just go back and change it because it's not a legally binding form.
This feels like emotional and financial self-care to me. You are giving your kids the gift of clarity when you're doing all of this, right? So they don't have to worry about it after you're gone, right?
Exactly right. On the side of our box for the Clear Kit, the slogan is leave your heirs the gift of organization.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this is. You're making sure that in a very stressful time for your children, for your loved ones, for your friends, for your family, for your church, for your community, that they aren't left guessing what you would want. And you can make it as detailed as you want. Who picks up your child from school? Where's the spare key to your house? What's your child's routine? Do they have allergies? Before they go to sleep, do you want to read them a story? And if so, do they have a favorite story? You can get as detailed as you want, or you can be very high level.
Mm-hmm.
In my will, I would like to designate this individual as guardian. In the event they are unable to serve, I would like this individual to be guardian. My children are to receive X, Y, and Z. If they are not yet of age, if they are, yada, 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 and you go on and so forth. You can make it very simple like that, or you can make it very long. And that's a decision of what you want to do because you're unique, just like everybody else.
Now, is it possible that sometimes you will find someone to take over your state in case you're no longer here, and then find out later on that that person you selected to take over your slate is not actually the best person to manage that estate for your children? How can you safeguard that just in case that if you're no longer there, and the person that you designated isn't the best suited person for your children? How can that be taken care of?
That's a great question. So there's two sides of that coin. What happens if you designate the individual and before you pass away, you realize that that's not the individual that you want to look after your kids?
Correct.
What if you chose and I'll just make up a scenario, you chose your brother because he lives 10 minutes from you and he is very responsible, but 2 years after you designate him as the guardian or your executor, he gets a new job and he has to move to China or to Japan.
Correct.
Maybe you don't want them to be the guardian anymore because you don't want your child to have to move halfway across the world. So you want to change it. You can update your will. You can completely replace it with a new one, or you can just update it with something called a codicil. And you don't have to tell that person if you don't want to.
I see.
You don't have to notify the guardians that they are the guardians. You don't have to notify the executor that they are the executor, though we oftentimes recommend that you do, so there's not a surprise.
What if you don't when you create this will and then you're no longer there? And then the executor say, well, I don't want that responsibility, but you're not there. Then what? What happens?
Okay, so if you designate somebody as a guardian, it's a legal process that they have to go through. So they don't just say, I'm your guardian. There's still a legal process that follows. And if that individual says that I prefer not to be the guardian, then the court steps in and it goes through those interstate succession laws. And there's a whole court system that's jurisdiction specific that determines what happens to your child, right?
Yeah.
There's also what happens if they become a bad guardian and the state decides that they're no longer, fit to serve. But there's two sides to that coin. Fortunately, hopefully, that's not something that comes up very often. But those are the types of mechanisms that it's oftentimes best to speak with an attorney that is in your specific jurisdiction, in your state, that is very well versed with guardianship, with what happens to make sure that you are checking those boxes, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, to use the metaphors, to make sure that exactly what you want to have happen for your child happens in the event something were to happen to you.
So Adam, you're in Maryland.
Yeah.
And I'm in New Hampshire. So let's say that I'm a single parent and I want to decide that I want to use your services. For example, me being in New Hampshire, you being in Maryland. How will you be able to help me? Because we have two different laws and in two different states. How will that work?
Great question. So Buried in Work does not provide legal services. We provide education and resources so people can learn themselves and then go hire service providers in their local jurisdiction in the event that they need additional assistance.
Okay.
You can come to Buried in Work. You can utilize our free resources online. You can purchase our Clear Kit, some of our other materials. that are not legal services, they're organization. But if you came to me and said, Adam, I need a will for me to set up guardianship opportunities for my child in the event that something were to happen to me, I'm in Vermont, I would say, unfortunately, I can't create that will for you. I recommend that you go to the service provider directory section of the website. There are lawyers that are listed there, and you can find one locally where you live.
Great. So, Adam, before we wrap up, what's your one final message you want every single parent listening to hear today?
It is not something that you don't do. And what I mean by that is start today. The longer you wait, the more complicated things can become. If you take the time to learn, if you take the time to put a basic will in place, it will save you and your family members a tremendous amount of time later on down the road. On average, it takes 570 hours to administer an estate in this country. And a significant portion of that is because people have to go on a scavenger hunt looking for information that would have been very easy for them to find if someone just took the time to tell them where to look. Don't let your family members, don't let your kids find themselves in that situation. Go to the website, buriedinwork.com, find the estate planning pyramid, and just start working your way through that. Start with the core. You need to have a will in place, get advanced directives in place, get your key contact list in place. Consider making legacy messages. Unbelievably important for children. Share stories with them, and you'll find yourself in a much better place by the time you're done.
Great. Well, now, Adam, let me ask you this. How can listeners find you?
Come to the website. Very easy. Buriedinwork.com. There's a contact form. If you have any questions, shoot us a note. I'll get back to you. Somebody else on the team will get back to you. But the thing is, if you have questions, odds are that somebody else has the same question too. So send it to us, and we'll create more content for you.
So well said. And to all the single parents listening, you are already doing so much. Thank you. Taking one step towards planning ahead isn't just practical, it's powerful. You deserve peace of mind. Adam, thank you for sharing your heart and knowledge with us today. LaFortune, it's been an honor. As we close, I want to leave you with this quote. Planning is bringing the future into the present so that you can do something about it. Alan Lackey, you are the protector of your family story. Take that first step and know that you are not alone on this journey. Until next time, keep rising, keep thriving, and keep building the legacy your children deserve. Thank you so much. Ciao now.